Take a picture of the front of the house to put on the front page of my report. The driveway's cracked in quite a few places. I look for displacement of about 3/4 of an inch or more, then it becomes kind of a tripping issue. So you could have some of those high corners ground down. You could have the slab jacked to bring the low part up level with the high part. You could paint the high part orange, or you could do nothing. Another couple pictures of the driveway. There's 2 brick column supports on the front porch of the house, and one of them is pretty badly damaged. Bricks are out of place and missing, so I'd recommend a licensed contractor repair that.
Okay.
On both the left and the right side of the house, there's kind of a bump out, meaning like the wall sticks out past the foundation. And I took some pictures up in there. It looks like it's pretty well sealed, so I don't think animals can get in the basement from there. That's what I was looking for.
Just a quick question on that. What would cause that? Is that like a shifting of the foundation, or?
No, it's designed that way.
It was designed out? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about 1.5 feet. It sticks out past the foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of trees against the house, so that can, hold water against the siding and cause damage. It also is a pathway for things like carpenter ants and other bugs, so I'd recommend all the vegetation be trimmed away.
Yeah.
The paint's peeling on the siding in a lot of places, so it would be good to paint the structure. Just got 4 or 5 photos of that here. The basement door, the window's been knocked out and a piece of plywood's been put in its place, so you might want to update that.
Okay.
There's a beam in the basement stairwell that goes right above, as you start to walk underneath the house in that stairwell, and it looks like someone's taken a chainsaw and cut up into the beam that supports that section there in 2 places. So I'd recommend have a contractor look at that and think about what it would take to repair that.
Okay.
There is a sump pump down in the stairwell. I didn't have any way to activate it. I don't have water with me or anything. There's no garden hose that I could see, so you may want to have that checked. It looks professionally installed. So yeah, you might want to have a plumber check that out for you.
Okay.
There's a few places I saw from the ground where the roofing was damaged, probably like one of these filbert trees that are next to the house. The limbs rubbed against the roofing and tore it away right at the roof edge. Once I got up on the roof, I realized that wasn't very important because there's a lot of missing shingles and damaged shingles on the roof, but we'll get to that. More vegetation, close-up of the damaged shingles at the edge of the roof. That's a bump out on the other side of the house. It's fine. The back patio has some cracks in it, same sort of thing as the driveway. There's a lot of probably tenants' debris or someone's debris out in the side yard, so I couldn't quite see every inch of the sidewalls there. I just document that.
Oh, okay.
I was able to see 99% of it. There's a downspout that's disconnected from the gutter at the back right corner or near the back right corner of the house, so I'd recommend that be reconnected.
Oh, okay.
There's a brick planter box connected to the back of the house that's badly cracked and displaced. That whole part of the house has settled quite a bit. It was an addition at some point. The main house has a concrete foundation. The little addition in the back has what's called a CMU, or concrete masonry unit, cinder block people call them, foundation, and really no footing, no concrete footing to support it. So it's settled quite a bit.
And is it that addition, that little white room or whatever that I've seen in the photos, or?
Yes,
Okay.
Another shot of the patio. The back porch was painted at some point and the paint's worn off. It could be repainted and made look better. Here's another picture of the front of the planter that's pretty badly cracked and displaced. There's a crack in the foundation next to the gas meter on the left wall of the house. It's a shrinkage crack, so it probably happened within a year or so of the foundation being poured.
Okay.
That's not really a structural defect. You could epoxy it, and that would kind of give you a baseline to know if it was moving at all or spreading.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask if there was any recent signs of movement or anything like that, or?
I can't tell, just, I'm only here for a few hours, but if you guys buy this house and you epoxy it, then you'll know, because if it moves, it'll crack open again.
Yeah.
There's a fair amount of moss on the roof. There's quite a few damaged and missing shingles on the roof. It's a 20-year roof. I suspect it's at least 20 years old, so it's time for a new roof.
Yeah.
On top of the chimney, there's a brick chimney right at the ridge there, and it's still in use for the furnace and the hot water heater. And instead of having a normal flue vent cap on the top, it has a roof vent. And so they don't vent nearly as much air as like a regular cap would, so that should be replaced. I also wasn't able to see down inside the chimney or up from the bottom because it's all sealed to see if there's a metal liner inside the chimney like there should be.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend having an HVAC company that does flue venting to get up and change the cap on top of the roof and also verify that there's a proper flue inside the chimney.
Oh, okay.
Now we're looking at more missing and damaged shingles on the roof. More of the same. A little better close-up of the cap on top of the chimney. The flashing on the chimney is not done correctly, so I'd recommend that be redone. And when the roof was redone, it would hopefully be redone. Now I went down to the basement. So the stairs, have you been to the house?
No, I'm out in Colorado, so.
Okay. So the stairs go down into the basement, and to keep the stairs from being too steep, they made them, a relative amount of steepness, but they butt right into the wall downstairs, so the stairs don't have any kind of landing or anything. So it's very odd.
Yeah,
I've never
saw a photo of that.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. 15 years of doing this, I've never seen somebody do that. So you could come down part way and do a landing and then turn 90 degrees and come down parallel to the wall. Also, those stairs, whoever built those wasn't a carpenter. They're not properly supported or even very well supported. So I'd recommend they be completely redone.
Okay.
So when I do the inspection on a house with an old basement like this, I first just look at the perimeter because that's where I usually find wood rot. That's where the moisture is going to be. There's a lot to look at, so that's the first thing I do. So I made my way around the perimeter. I noticed there was some knob and tube wiring. I have a little electrical sniffer, and sure enough, it was hot. And as I checked it in most other places, most of the house is wired with knob and tube wiring. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Electrically also, there's quite a few splices downstairs where someone spliced either into the knob and tube or with Romex or spliced Romex into Romex. And they just used electrical tape. Splices belong in a box that's attached to the structure with a cover on it, a lid on it.
Okay. I'm assuming it's for that weird makeshift grow room they're trying to do or whatever down there. Or?
Yeah, that's probably part of it.
Okay.
I mean, for sure, they were doing some funky wiring in there. I think they took a lot of it out, but
Okay.
So it's a mixture. There's a little bit of white tape on some of the ductwork downstairs that probably contains asbestos.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So you'd want to have that tested, most likely. Oh, my battery's failing. There were other cracks in the foundation that someone sealed with expanding foam, so you can keep an eye on those and see if they move.
Okay.
I found some carpenter ant frass downstairs in one corner of the house, so have a pest company come and consider the idea of doing a pest treatment for carpenter ants. It's behind the gun safe that's downstairs. That'll probably be gone by the time you get here.
Oh, okay.
To the right of that is another crack in the foundation. All the windows downstairs have been knocked out and they've been boarded up with plywood. This is a picture of the first electrical outlet I'm testing. It's not grounded, so there were the only grounded outlets in the house I think were in the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are 2-prong, some are 3-prong, ungrounded. There's electrical conduit downstairs in one of those grow rooms that should be, electrical wire that should be in a conduit be protected or removed. There's a 240 volt outlet that also, the wire's not in a conduit. Maybe it should just be removed.
Oh, okay.
There's water stains on the floor, and it took, to be honest, it took Anita telling me that she had noticed that it was a grow room. I didn't think about it. But I think the water staining on the floor is probably from them watering the plants. You can see, once I realized, once I thought about it, you can see where the big pots sat on the floor, and you can see the water staining.
The rings they left it.
Yeah. But, it's Western Washington, so basements can get wet here. But that's the only evidence of moisture I saw was in relation to those grow rooms.
Oh, okay.
There's a mixture of galvanized piping and copper piping. Galvanized piping tends to fill in from the inside, kind of like we get arteriosclerosis. Those pipes can fill in over time, and you lose pressure to the point where they have to be replaced. Hard to say if it's going to happen, but it can happen. It's based on water hardness and mineral content. Some of the copper piping is connected to the galvanized piping without the benefit of a dielectric union, so you can get electrolysis and something, with some part of that pipe will start to corrode. So I'd recommend you have a licensed plumber fix that. Somebody that ran the copper wiring, that was done after the house was built. I don't know why they ran it high like this, but they cut way up into one of the floor joists with 2 big notches, so they've basically destroyed that floor joist. So have a contractor repair that. There's electrical boxes downstairs in the basement for light fixtures and junction boxes and outlets that don't have covers, so I'd recommend they all have covers. Now I'm looking at the hot water heater. The flue goes into the chimney, and like I said, I can't tell if it's lined or not like it should be, so have someone check that out. The earthquake straps are just connected to a 2x4 that's kind of just standing next to the hot water heater. It's not connected at the bottom to anything, and it's got a couple screws in the top of it to hold it in place. So those should really be drilled into the concrete wall and properly attached.
Oh yeah, I don't even know anything about that.
The furnace.
Earthquake traps, I'm assuming anything that has like a gas line running to it needs to be bolted in to like a.
Yes, yeah, it needs to be secured in case we get that big earthquake.
Yeah, sorry, we live in Colorado. We don't even worry about that stuff. So.
Oh yeah, oh we do.
Yeah, so I just had to think that one through first. So they have it bolted to a 2x4, not into concrete?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And the 2x4 is not attached to anything at the floor end of it, and the upper end of it just has a couple sheetrock screws, holding it to something. So.
Oh, okay.
So the furnace doesn't have any current service tags. I'd recommend it be serviced. Both the furnace and the hot water heater don't have what's called a sediment trap in the gas line. It's a little T, a vertical T with a cap at the bottom, so when the gas passes across that void, particles will fall down in there and not go into the gas valve. So I'd recommend that be installed.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. The filter for the furnace is quite dirty, so when it gets serviced, it would be changed. Because of the age of the furnace, I'd recommend it be tested for carbon monoxide. During a home inspection, I have no way to test if the heat exchanger has cracked or not, but as furnaces age, that can happen, and if it does, then you get carbon monoxide in your home. So I'd really recommend that be done. Now I'm looking.
Is there an age at all on the furnace, or is it like well past?
It's about 16 to 18 years old. There was no production date on it, but it has an ANSI number, it's called, and it's like a standard they have to meet, and it changes every 2 years. So if you add 2 years to that date, that's roughly the age of it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to go fast because my battery in my camera's dying. I'm looking at the electrical panel. It was all wired correctly, but none of the breakers are labeled, so I'd recommend that be done. And a few more shots of just electrical things that aren't right. Now, staining on the floor. The handrail for the basement doesn't go all the way down the stairs. That's something, whoever rebuilds the stairs could take care of. The stove doesn't have an anti-tipping device. That's an important safety feature for little kids. If you had a pot of something hot on the stove and the door was down and you put weight on the door, it doesn't take much weight, and then the stove tips up and that hot pot slides off.
Yeah.
There's no GFCI outlets in the home, so anywhere where there's water, bathroom, kitchen, that sort of thing, should be GFCI protected. The dishwasher drain, there's an old one underneath the sink, and it's all chewed up by rats. I did see evidence of rats at different places under and in the house. So again, having a pest service come and do what's called exclusion work and treat for rats.
Sweet.
Yeah. The dishwasher has a leak. It's draining underneath the addition part of the house, and there's water on the floor down there. I wasn't able to crawl all the way over to it because there's a tremendous amount of animal feces down there, and now it's wet animal feces, and it's I don't do that. It's not safe for an inspector to do that. That's somebody else's job. So we'll come back to that when I have some pictures from under the house. I'm looking at a picture now at the entranceway to the kitchen over towards that little white room, and you can see, even in the photograph, that the floor slopes pretty dramatically. I put my square-sided a flashlight on the floor. You know, it's kind of a cylinder, but it's got these square edges and it's still rolled. So it's a pretty steep slope.
Oh, okay. That's in that addition room, right? That little white room?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So there's no GFCI outlets in the bathroom either. I have a picture of that. The stopper in the tub wasn't connected and didn't look like it was in good shape, so that should be replaced. The toilet was really loose on the floor. When I inspect the toilet, the first thing I do is walk up to the side of my calf and push on it, and it just rocked freely.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't seem to have been leaking. I didn't notice anything from the basement. You can look right up and see where that is. And I took my moisture meter and ran it around the toilet, and it didn't register as damp, so I'd recommend a plumber pull the toilet, put a new wax ring, and then secure the toilet to the floor.
Cool.
The fan in the bathroom is not functioning, so I'd recommend that be fixed. There are carbon monoxide alarms in the house like they are required. In the attic, that was a disappointing discovery. There's insulation over all the knob and tube wiring, and that's really a pretty unsafe condition. One of the nice things about knob and tube, you know, it's not the greatest wiring, but one of the good things about it was really out in the open for the most part. And if there was an issue and it heated up, that would keep it cool because it was out in the open. When you put a bunch of insulation over the top of it, you've made it really pretty unsafe. The solution for that is you have a company come with a blower truck like they were installing insulation, and they run it backwards and they suck all the insulation out of the attic. And then you have an electrician rewire that part of the house so there's no knob and tube, and then you have the attic re-insulated.
Okay.
So
Did
that's
they,
going to be an important
did they
thing for
put
you guys
that
for
added
resale.
Insulation, or is that?
Did what?
Did they actually redo the insulation up there? Is it newer insulation or?
Oh, when this house was built, there was no insulation. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's new.
Oh, it's new. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's newer. This house was built in 1921.
21, I think it was.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been any insulation. So yeah, someone added insulation and they didn't think about doing it over knob and tube. So I was going to say, for you guys, from a resale standpoint, you know, you're going to want to have that addressed because that's going to be a stumbling block for some buyers.
Yeah.
And then I have pictures. There's splices of Romex to knob and tube in the attic also. Pictures of the buried knob and tube. For some reason, all above the bathroom, someone probably took a blower or a rake or whatever and just removed all the insulation on like a 12 by 12 foot area. So that should be re-insulated. And then there's open splices at the electrical bath fan above the bathroom. The cover for the attic is outside above the front porch, and the screws are just full of paint. I had a real struggle. I had to use a Phillips screwdriver and a hammer to, you know, set the Phillips into the head of the screw and then try to back them out. So I didn't put the screws back. I put two of them back just to hold it in place. It would be really hard to get out now. So I'd recommend those be replaced.
Oh, okay.
There's no correct threshold at the front door. It just kind of transitions from the wood floor inside to the decking outside, and it's kind of crudely done. It's all chewed up. In the crawl space, like I said, there's just a ton of animal feces down there. Looks like maybe possum or raccoon, as well as rodent. There's one heat duct that's doesn't really have hardly any insulation left on it. That should be re-insulated because it's cold. There's a couple big areas of the dirt that's exposed. There is some black plastic, but all the dirt's not covered, so that's going to let moisture up into the house.
Okay.
There's no insulation under the crawl space, so I'd recommend that be insulated. Although there is now in tube wiring, it's held down towards the bottom of the joist, so you could do some kind of rigid foam insulation hard up against the subfloor. And then the dishwasher is draining into the crawl space, and I don't know if it just flat out drains into the crawl space or if the pipe is broken, because I wasn't going to crawl over there through a bunch of wet animal feces.
Yeah.
So in terms of the crawl space, you know, what I usually say is it was a somewhat incomplete inspection. I mean, you'll see in my photos, I can see over there, but it's not the same as me like going over there. I'm probably 8 or 10 feet away. So it makes me a little uncomfortable that there could be something else over there that I wasn't able to see because I couldn't get all the way over there. So if you want, after all that's taken care of and that crawl space is cleaned up, you could call me and schedule a re-inspection, and I could come out and, you know, look at that one section.
Oh, okay.
And then we're back out front.